Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. If you are new here, welcome. It's always such a pleasure to have new listeners. And for my usual people who keep coming back, thank you so much for tuning in. It's always such a pleasure to have the regulars listening in once again. Remember that you can follow the show on social media such as Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Root of the Science Pod, or you can follow and like the pages on LinkedIn and Facebook at The Root of the Science podcast. And also a reminder that you must listen to the show on wherever you love to listen to your show. And also remember to click the notify button so that you're notified when a new episode comes on. Also a reminder that if you want to be on the show, or you know there's somebody who I should chat to on the show, please reach out to me via DM, or for faster communication, send an email at therootofthestarpod@gmail.com and we shall get back to you. Now, let's get into today's episode, shall we? My guest today is Nobukhosi Ndlovu. She is originally from Zimbabwe and based in South Africa. She's a pharmacist intern. In this episode, we chat about her work, the root of her science journey, and of course, so much more. Let's go. Hi, Nobukhosi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anne. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm really excited to chat with you today. So first things first, who is Nobukhosi? Where are you from? Where are you currently based? And just briefly, what do you do?
All right. So basically, I was born in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. And that's where I pretty much grew up for like half my life. And then I moved to South Africa when I was 12. And I'm currently based in Johannesburg, South, where I'm a pharmacist intern.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to get to know more about you in detail during the course of this interview. But before we delve into everything about you and what you do, you told me that you're actually like a really super creative person. You know, you like to write and you do some coloring. Tell me more about this side of you away from Nobukhosi, the pharmacist.
Well, it actually started during COVID. Hey, I think a lot of people picked stuff up during that time. I've never really been one for drawing. I've ever been so bad at it, you know. But then, during COVID, you know, I was bored, guys. Like, you know, bored with the rest of the world. So I just was scrolling through Pinterest, and I just thought, you know what? How about I start coloring instead, since I can't draw?
Yeah.
And I never actually thought that it would come this far, because now I'm like, you know, here at this age, still getting coloring books.
But to be fair, don't they call them adult coloring books anyway? So it's not like kiddies coloring books.
It's still coloring books, guys. But you know, like, it's just one of those skills that I've loved improving. I can definitely see the improvement. Like, it gets better with time. I love doing it.
Wow.
It's relaxing.
No, that's so cool. I did hear that it does have that relaxing effect, and yeah, definitely many people picked up hobbies during COVID. I mean, look at me. I picked this up during COVID and we are here. So these things happened. It sticks, and like you said, it gets better with time. So I definitely believe that. That's such an interesting and cool hobby. So in the beginning of your intro, you said you are originally from Zimbabwe. You lived there half of your life, right? And then you
Yes,
came
I
to
did.
South Africa. So when you were this young person, this young Kosi in Zim, did you know that, you know, a career in the sciences is something that you would end up getting to? Or was it something that, you know, you're like, oh, snap, I'm here? What was the root of your science?
Well, I've always known that I was going to end up in health.
Mm,
It's just, one of those things that I had always known. I'd been very interested in like health sciences. I didn't know I was going to end up where I am, like in pharmacy. I thought that I was more likely going to end up in medicine than in pharmacy. But, you know, life had other
yeah.
plans, and here I am,
Mm.
like a couple of years later. But otherwise, like I've always been interested in the sciences. It's always been a passion.
No, that's great that this is where you wanted to in terms of the sciences is where you ended up. Speaking of what you said that, you know, I think with most African kids, our parents project the idea of being a doctor. And I've spoken to people who are pharmacists, you know, the idea might have been being a doctor and then life changes. So that was something similar to you?
Definitely, but in my case, it wasn't something that was projected from the outside. It
Okay.
was more of an of me, like, telling myself, okay, this is where I want to end up.
Mm,
But um, actually, then there was someone that I met when I was still deciding what I was going to do and when I was doing my application.
mm,
And this guy was a pharmacist at the time.
yeah.
And he asked me, like, is it something that you'd perhaps be interested in doing? But because I wasn't really like fully knowledgeable as to I can say fully into what pharmacy is all about, because all we know is you go into a pharmacy, you give the pharmacist the prescription,
Yeah.
and you get your medication and you go home. At that
Mm.
point, that's all I knew as well. I didn't realize how broad it actually is as a field.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So after considering it, then, well, I applied, and yeah, it kind of became my second choice at the time. And yeah, I can definitely say I do not regret it at all. I fell in love with pharmacy the moment I got into it and got to understand what it actually is about.
Mm. No, wow. I'm so glad that, you know, you are happy where you are. And you mentioned something very important. It's like when you said that when somebody did tell you about it, you just didn't know the scope of it. We know it in such a simplistic terms. I mean, I know it really well this week. I've been going to the doctor. I mean, to the pharmacist. I've got the flu, so very frequent with that. I just think it's those people who are in those white lab coats, and then you give them a prescription, they give you back medication. Simple. So yeah, I think many other people, they've got that same view of what a scientist, I mean, a pharmacist is. So you are currently an intern pharmacist at a independent community pharmacy. So can you tell us more from the other side of the bench, what, like, just some of the things that you do there, and yeah, to just get us to the other side, because I think many of us only know pharmacy in its very, very basic level.
Well, what I can tell you is it's more than just counting pills, guys. It's more than just getting in there and counting tablets. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
Trust me, like, people don't exaggerate when they say when you're in the health sciences, you've got people's lives on your hands. All it takes is just one oversight and, it could be disaster. And that is not an exaggeration. It's something that you've got to do every single day. You know, someone walks in with their prescription and you're here, you have to, you know about this person's allergies just in case, the doctor didn't pick it up. Not to say that doctors don't do their jobs, guys. Doctors are amazing, but we are human and we're prone to err. So in case they missed it, and I need to know your allergies. I need to know whether you're pregnant. Am I going to harm anyone's unborn baby? Is it safe for you to take this medication? If you're taking this medication, are you on any other medication which can cause this not to work, or which can cause this to become toxic to you? Or, so I have to do this within like 10 to 15 minutes of meeting someone that I've never seen before in my life, And this is why, it gets frustrating sometimes. People get into the queue and they're like, why are you taking so long? But guys, we need to know all these things. We need to get around all these things, because at the end of the day, you've got people's lives on your hands. And there are people who don't come in with prescriptions, and they come and they tell you their symptoms. I have to know, like, all these symptoms. I have to know what it could be. I need to know what it is that I should give you, and still take your medical history so that I can know what is safe for you to take and what is not safe for you to take. And then there's also the administrative part of it. You have a whole lot of filing that you have to do. And in my case, because it's a community pharmacy, I also need to do like injections, and so it's quite, a wide scope of things that you get to cover just in one day. By the time you go home, you'd have done all of these things in one day.
Sure. And for so many people.
Definitely. Like, the season's changing, it's people with allergies, it's flu, it's all these other things.
Wow. No, listen, I have, not to say that I didn't respect you guys, but it's a higher level of respect, because like I said, I didn't know what happens behind that counter. But when you paint that picture, it's a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And wow, kudos to you and the amazing the amazing people, the amazing pharmacists.
Thank you.
And I think, like,
thank you so much.
I don't necessarily want to go and see a pharmacist anytime soon, because I'm trying to be better from my own flu. But when I see one, I'm going to be like, you know what? Thank you so much for the work that you do, because wow, it's a lot. And like you said, that you're like, sometimes as people who didn't go to the doctor, you now have to be like the diagnoser of all these symptoms that they come to you. And that can be a bit overwhelming.
It can be. It's as overwhelming as is reading the doctor's handwriting, hey?
Oh, yes, the doctor's handwriting. But hey, you guys know how to read it. We can't read it. But somehow you as the pharmacists are able to get what the doctor is saying. Oh man, I'm able to get what the doctor is saying. No, Khosi, wow, what honestly, I know this is a very like summarized version of everything that you do, but like in that short snippet, I think many of us can take like note, and just in terms of the importance of the work that you do. But you mentioned to me that before this, there was a moment before you were employed, before you're working at the community clinic. There was a point in 2019 where you were actually, you were not employed for an entire year, right?
Yes.
And it's obviously, as much as you're overwhelmed now, I'm sure you're still very grateful that you have a job. And when you think back of that time, it was obviously difficult trying to navigate what it means to be like a graduate and still unable to join a workforce, and you're obviously eager. So this can have severe effect on your mental health. I think many people can relate to that. Many young people, or even somebody who has been in the workforce and they've lost their job, not working really affects your mental health. And you said when this happened, it actually did affect your mental health and actually led you to starting your own blog called Legitmental. Did I pronounce it?
Yes, Legitmental.
Legitmental, which focuses on mental health. So can you just chat to me more about that time and also about your blog?
Definitely. Yeah, it was a difficult time. When you're at school, you've got this picture of how life is supposed to be like after graduation. You think, everything is just a bed of roses. Life is going to be great. But you don't really mentally prepare for that possibility of you being at home, because somehow, you don't want to be negative about it. But I think it's becoming more and more of a reality now, with more people getting out of school and finding it difficult to join the workforce. In my case, yeah, it was very difficult, but I'm grateful that I had quite a great support system. My family was there for me. I was staying at home, and I had support of friends, and that really for me went a long way. So I'm really grateful that I had that kind of support. But at the same time, it sort of like puts you in a position where you feel like you failed somehow, but it's not your fault, but you can't help but, get that feeling. So it's really one of those things that were very difficult to navigate. But I would agree with you to say, in as much as life is hectic at the moment, I'm very grateful to be in a position that I'm at right now. And yes, when I was at home at that time, I ended up starting like a blog. Like I said, I'm interested in writing, even though some of my writings don't end up making it out there because I find them a bit personal. But yes,
Yeah.
I do write. And at that time, I started, just reading a lot about mental health and basically what it means. And I think it was that time when there was like a huge wave on social media about people trying to interpret like all these, different conditions that people suffer. And yeah, from there I tried to, you know, sort of like internalize it and look at it from my own perspective to say, how do I understand this? And how then can I interpret it in a way that the next person can also understand it? So I started it off as a coping mechanism, so to speak, like a self-help thing for myself, but ultimately ended up thinking, why not just put some of these things out there? And with a bit of support here and there, I managed to get it out there. I haven't written in a while, but the blog is still up. And, I'm hoping that when things get a bit calmer, I'll be able to pick it up again. But it's still online, still relevant, even like a couple of years later. And yeah, like I said, I'm hoping that when things get, a bit better, when I get more time, then I'll be able to put more of the writings up online.
No, that's amazing. That's really amazing. And I like what you said, that even though you haven't written in a while, posts like that are still relevant because, you know, like the type of advice and even your musings on, or your perspective, somebody could be going through something and that's perfectly exactly what they need. So the fact that it's still available, and it's yeah, I'm sure it's very much helpful. And what a wonderful way to help cope, because there's sometimes, even like you said, you had the support, you were living at home, etc., but sometimes the mind is the mind, and nobody can really help you with your own mind. Okay, well, there are some help, therapy, etc., but sometimes you need to process things on your own, and we all process things differently. And for you, if it was writing that helped you process, I think that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think, we all have our different things that help us. But I think, with writing, it puts you in a position where you are on the outside looking in. You become more objective in the way that you look at things, as opposed to just, sitting down and thinking about it. Sometimes you need to be that person who's, looking in from the outside.
No, I hear you. And have you ever looked back now at some of the things that you've written versus where you are now, and just do that comparison, like when you're writing in that moment?
Definitely, definitely. It's, when you reflect and you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how bad it was at that time. And
Yeah.
you see how far you've come. It's, you basically just, use, well, in my case, I use it as a measure of growth. And, it really goes to show as a person that, in as much as it might be looking bad at that particular moment, things actually do get better.
Yes. Oh, yes to that. And, sometimes that feeling feels so permanent, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's nothing after this, and this is all that I'm going to be. But what a wonderful moment to be able to reflect back on that moment and be like, wow, yes, it was bad, but thank God. We've moved, and you've gotten past that, and congratulations on your job. We really have to say that, especially in this economy, the fact that jobs are scarce, especially here in South Africa, especially for young people. So huge congratulations and kudos on your journey so far.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Yeah, here's to more of other great things that you're able to look back on this moment as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so for some of us who haven't been able to read your blog yet, but will after listening to this, as we close off, after sharing a bit about yourself and your journey, what are some golden nuggets that you'd love to leave someone, just based off your own experiences, be it about life in general or your own journey in the science?
Firstly, your journey is your own. Like, in as much as it matters, like the opinions of the parents. I'm sorry, guys, to the parents about this, but like you can't choose your child's path. Sometimes you need to let them choose for themselves, because when it gets tough, you want to look back and be like, I chose this for myself, therefore I'm giving it my all. It's very different if it's something that was chosen for you, because then you already like on the verge of giving up, because you're like, I'm not doing this for me anyway. So your journey is your own. And for people who are looking into going into pharmacy, if you're interested in pharmacy, what I can say is I really hope you love chemistry, because this degree is entirely chemistry based. So I really hope you love chem. Of course, there are other things that you have to learn, but I think chemistry is like the core of it. And pharmacology is, ask anyone on the street who's come across pharmacology, they'll tell you that's the beast that's waiting for you on the other side. But besides that, not to scare people off, pharmacy is amazing. You can basically, in a nutshell, it's quite broad. You can go into hospital pharmacy, you can go into industry where they manufacture and, make the medication. You can go into regulatory where you're pretty much dealing with the admin side where people apply to have their medications approved, and you pretty much go over to the manufacturing sites to determine whether or not they're proper. And you can go into community pharmacy, which is what I think a whole lot of us are quite familiar with, like your community pharmacies, the independent pharmacies that you come across on a daily basis. So it's quite broad, and this is not even everything, but these are the more common roles that people end up in with the bee farm.
Wow. So interesting. I am learning so much. Like I said, I think so many of us have got such a elementary level understanding of pharmacy. When you said about pharmacy is chemistry, I'm like, oh my goodness, but it makes sense. But it didn't click initially. So thank God I didn't get into that. No, but wow. Thank you so much for educating me, and I'm sure many other people who did not know much about this industry, even though we are so, like you said, familiar in terms of our community pharmacists who we are grateful for. But I hope somebody is inspired and educated, and and we appreciate pharmacists more. And I wish you all of the best with everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for having me.
It is such a pleasure. And to everybody else who's tuned in, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.